Akio Toyoda, the longtime face and guiding force behind Toyota, recently stirred a storm by pushing back against the popular narrative that electric vehicles are the only future for the auto industry. In a bold stance that startled observers, he argued that prioritizing battery electric cars above all else is not only misguided, it undermines real consumer choice and ignores practical realities. He suggested there's still room for cleaner combustion technology, hybrids, hydrogen solutions, and potentially other innovations. At a major auto showcase in Tokyo, where Toyota unveiled beefed-up iterations of traditional models like the GR Yaris and the Lexus LBX alongside an intriguing Morizo concept, Toyota dropped a statement that sent ripples through the political and environmental spheres. He warned that endorsing electric vehicles as the sole answer to carbon neutrality could backfire by alienating a large swath of buyers, particularly those who can't afford EVs, lack access to reliable charging, or live in regions where infrastructure and climate make EV ownership complicated. He wasn't talking in vague terms. He emphasized that regulators and policymakers, by zealously pushing bans on internal combustion vehicles, risked ignoring nuance. Instead of abolishing petrol cars outright, Toyota argued, the focus should be on reducing emissions overall, recognizing that there are multiple pathways to that goal, including hybrids, hydrogen, and potentially new combustion breakthroughs. This wasn't just a philosophical standpoint. Behind the scenes, Toyota remains quietly invested in internal combustion innovations, possibly a next-generation engine architecture promising astonishingly long range, potentially hundreds of miles per tank. The suggestion that these alternative paths might eventually eclipse EVs in practicality or popularity only adds intrigue to the story. The response to Toyota's stance has been swift and decidedly mixed. Some political figures, particularly those who've staked heavy reputational currency on electric cars as the future, were clearly rattled. They responded indirectly, fueling pressure campaigns, enlisting activists, and amplifying critical voices to paint Toyota as anti-climate or out of touch. Meanwhile, environmental advocates and institutional investors have challenged Toyota's strategy. Some major funds, especially in Europe, have demanded clarity, questioning whether Toyota's hesitance toward full electrification could jeopardize long-term competitiveness in alignment with global decarbonization goals. But Toyota, for its part, is pushing back calmly. At its recent shareholders meeting, an executive vice president made the case that banning internal combustion cars outright isn't productive, and that too much focus on one technology, in this case batteries, risks devaluing other viable innovation paths. Toyota claims it's not avoiding emissions reduction, it's just insisting on diversity of approach. That said, Tesla and the broader EV sector haven't been immune to challenges. Even Elon Musk recently faced a sharp stock decline after earnings fell short. Comparisons were drawn. If even Tesla, the EV standard bearer, is faltering, doesn't that suggest broader vulnerabilities in the electric-only model? Automakers across the board seem to be hitting the brakes on ambitious EV plans. Lucid trimmed production targets by around 30%. GM pushed back the launch of its electric Silverado by a whole year. And Ford reportedly reeled in production of its F-150 Lightning after taking heavy losses. Dealers report unsold EVs stacking up on the lot. Demand hasn't matched expectations, and affordability remains a central issue. Yet despite his critiques, Toyota acknowledges the EV story isn't over, and Toyota isn't retreating entirely. The company continues to offer EV models like the BZ4X and the Lexus RZ, even as it leans heavily into hybrids and other cleaner fuel technologies. Recent sales data shows hybrid and plug-in sales climbing substantially year over year. In one quarter, nearly a third of Toyota's total vehicle volume came from electrified options, including plug-ins. The RAV4 Prime sits atop the list of best-selling plug-in models, while the BZ4X and Lexus RZ have also made meaningful strides. But the company recently dialed back its EV sales forecast by about 40%, attributing the revision to fierce competition in China and aggressive pricing that undercut margins. Reducing reliance on pure EVs, Toyota appears to be leaning back toward its core strengths, hybrids and combustion technology, rather than escalating the EV arms race. This stance hasn't reassured all critics. Environmental groups argue Toyota's lobbying efforts promoting alternative technologies instead of full electrification, are a distraction at best and obfuscation at worst. Pension funds and other big investors worry the company might be missing an irreversible shift toward batteries. They want Toyota to commit fully. Toyota, though, underscores that EVs aren't a perfect fit for everyone. The upfront price tag is still high. Charging infrastructure is uneven, particularly in rural or colder regions, where EV range can drop by as much as a third. Repairs are often pricey and complex, and getting more so as batteries become more integrated into vehicle structure. Reports of repair costs soaring into tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes just to fix minor exterior damage, have become more common, especially when the battery casing or modules must be addressed. Design complexity and safety concerns often limit owners' options for independent repairs. Despite these concerns, Toyota hasn't abandoned the EV narrative entirely. Its plug-in offerings show the company is willing to compete on that front, not just as a token gesture, but strategically. At the same time, it's leaning into high-compression engines, hydrogen fuel technologies, and even experimental ammonia combustion systems. These efforts suggest Toyota believes the future won't be dictated by a single technology, but by a portfolio of solutions. Some hybrids, some battery, some hydrogen or lean burn engines. It's a both and, not either or approach. Meanwhile, behind this debate runs a larger political undercurrent. In countries like the US, policymakers are enacting stricter emissions targets, even edging toward all-electric mandates in some cases. These norms create enormous pressure for automakers to pivot, but whether those mandates truly reflect consumer readiness or simply political signaling remains an open question. All told, Toyota's messaging isn't simply reactionary. It reflects a deep, conservative respect for gradual change, respect for diversity in their customers' lifestyles and needs. In his defense of consumer choice, innovation, variety, and practical progress, Toyota isn't necessarily trying to destroy EVs. He's saying it's premature to bet only on them. He envisions a layered transition. Lower emissions aren't reserved for electric cars alone, but can be achieved across technologies. As the industry grapples with this, the question looms: should automakers go 100% electric? Toyota's current strategy suggests no. They believe that until charging infrastructure, cost, and energy sources align more universally, imposing EVs prematurely risks leaving a lot of people behind. At the same time, they're not ignoring the electric trend. They're just pacing themselves, balancing it with investments in other low-carbon technologies. Toyota's once quiet conservatism may now be the most compelling factor in this transition, a demand for practicality, affordability, and adaptability. The company insists it's neither against the environment nor against progress. It's pro-realism, pro-choice, and pro-innovation diversity. Time will tell whether this multi-pronged strategy secures success or if the EV juggernaut will steamroll it. In the meantime, one thing is clear: Toyota is staking everything on the conviction that the world doesn't need a single path to a cleaner future, just multiple ones that work for different people, regions, and realities.